What is the Sabbath? What does it mean to remember the Sabbath? What does it mean to remember the Sabbath and keep it holy? You've heard these words before: remember, Sabbath, holy. But when you put them together, what do they mean for our lives and for our world? Let's go find out.
I think it's like a time when people think about their God, I guess.
The Sabbath isn't it the Jewish thing?
The Sabbath is the seventh day that God had made for resting. People do it on a Saturday because that was the seventh day that God did rest.
The Sabbath to me was just like a day of respect. And sort of in remembrance of everything that God does. And like you're supposed to do that every day.
Well, remembering the Sabbath and keeping it holy is basically reminding yourself that even if you don't go to church, or even if you don't go to the Sabbath, remember that it's always there, remember that it's always available for you, that God's door is always open for you.
Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy. We hear this command chiseled into the book of Exodus, but it actually first begins in the book of Genesis. You see what I just did there? Begins in the book of Genesis because the word Genesis means beginning. Okay, we'll save that for another video. In the first creation account in the book of Genesis, we hear this poetic cosmology, and we hear God speaking in this rhythm, in this cadence. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was evening, and there was morning the first day. And God said, "Let there be sky and sea," and there was evening, and there was morning the second day. And God said, "Let there be land," and there was evening, and there was morning the third day. And God said, "Let there be stars," and there was evening, and there was morning the fourth day. And God said, "Let there be birds and fish," and there was evening, and there was morning the fifth day. And God said, "Let there be plants and animals and people," and there was evening, and there was morning the sixth day. And echoing all throughout this poetic narration is a chorus. And God saw that it was good, 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 very good. And then on the seventh day, on Saturday, the poem tells us that God rested. God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. This seventh day, this day of rest, this is the Sabbath. Because even God knows that there's more to life than work, 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 work.
Work, 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 work.
It is also important, perhaps even essential, to rest. To stop and breathe in a city that never sleeps. Sabbath is a reminder to just say no when everything around us is telling us to just do it.
Just do it!
And this Sabbath is holy. And holy literally means set apart, which is exactly what we see happening in this poem, with 6 days of work and 1 day of rest. However, this can make it way too easy to put God's stamp of approval on a lifestyle that lives for the weekend while you burn out with over 80 hours of work each week. And then when Saturday finally does roll around, you are just collapsed and crashed. That's not rest. That's exhaustion. Just as we see goodness embedded into every day, what would it mean for us to discover holiness embedded into every day? Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. This might not just be a command for 1 day out of 7, but this might be an invitation to live all 7 days differently. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, a name and face you might recognize from his time with the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he literally wrote the book on Sabbath. It's called Sabbath, and yes, it's amazing, and yes, you should read it. In an interview about the Sabbath, he said this.
The Sabbath is a lonely day among 6 vulgar days of the week can never survive. Unless there's a little bit of Shabbos on Wednesday, there will be no Shabbos on Sunday.
Noise you couldn't quite locate.
Unless there's a little bit of Shabbos on Wednesday, there will be no Shabbos, no Shabbos, no Shabbos on Saturday.
You see, we have fragmented and dismembered the Sabbath, building walls around one day of the week, perhaps to avoid letting work in, but as a result, we don't let the Sabbath out into the rest of the week, which is exactly why the first word of this command is so important. Remember. Remember is not just the opposite of forget. Remember is the opposite of dismember. And while this word might bring up some rather gruesome images, it reminds us that the word remember means to make something whole, to bring all the pieces back together, to remember. Remember the Sabbath. Bring it back together. Saturate a little bit of Sabbath into every single day.
Unless there's a little bit of Shabbos on Wednesday, there will be no Shabbos on Saturday.
Sabbath remembers us. Sabbath puts us back together. Sabbath reminds us that we are not human doings, but we are human beings. So enjoy your weekend, but don't just trap Sabbath into one day of the week. Remember to find a little bit of Sabbath on Monday and Wednesday and every day. Turn off your phone, practice yoga, read a book, light a candle, have a drink, take a walk. Sabbath is an invitation to be human, not a human doing, but a human being.